Let me tell you a story of two men, Jacob and Daniel. Now, both of these men were Reformed Christians, both in good standing at local churches, Dutch Reformed churches. Let's go with that. Both worked full-time as civil engineers and both had 3 kids. Both loved reading. The difference between Jacob and Daniel, though, was that Jacob was reading an average of 15 books a year, whereas Daniel was only barely scratching 3. Jacob feels like he gets tons of reading time in, but Daniel is always wishing in his busy life he had more time. You know, these guys were both involved in their families, their local churches. They were involved at work, so they were busy. But Daniel never felt like he could quite get there. Same life circumstances, but different outcomes. Now, how is Jacob, in the exact same circumstances, able to read 5 times more than Daniel? Well, there could be a number of different reasons that we could speculate on, but it all, in my opinion, comes down to one thing that Jacob does better than Daniel, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video, the one 5-second habit that can multiply your reading by unbelievable amounts. Now, I'm going to talk about this habit today, but first, before I dive in, if you're wanting to access a library of curated, quality, Reformed Christian books that are handpicked, no fluff, no rubbish, just a list of books divided into categories, whether it's eschatology, the Puritans, general Christian living, download my Ultimate Reformed book list down below in the description. Just enter your email, I'll send it over to you. You can access it for free. Sound like a pretty fair deal? All right, with that in mind, let's dive into my background, right? So I am Aidan Russell. I'm the director, the founder of Reformation Book Club, an online book club for Reformed Christian men to help Christian men build better reading habits and glorify God through the acquisition of knowledge and wisdom to the glory of God. But in my history and my story, I suppose, I found reading quite difficult. In fact, I didn't really love reading growing up at all. It wasn't until I left high school that I really started enjoying reading. And it didn't even start with theology. It didn't start with Christian books. It started with business books, funnily enough. Now, I was very busy out of high school. You know, I was studying at university, college for the Americans here. I was working full time. I was had a girlfriend who's now then became my fiance, then became my wife. You know, I was doing stuff at church. I was involved in all these good things, but I enjoyed reading, yet struggled to have a consistent habit with it. Some weeks I would smash out multiple books. Other weeks I wouldn't. It would be a real struggle to even read a page. It wasn't until I realized what was the roadblock between me and reading more that things started to change, and I picked up a greater level of consistency in my reading life. And I want to share what that is with you right now. The habit I neglected, yes, it might surprise you, the habit I neglected was sitting down and opening the book. Right? I didn't sit down enough and open the book. I had a book I was reading, you know, maybe multiple books. I didn't sit down and open the book, though, right? This seems so simple. But really, often when I'm talking to men who struggle to read regularly, it's not that they have a solid reading habit and they're just not reading enough. No. In 99% of cases, what it is that they're not picking up the book. They're not opening it. I spent many years in my background in music education teaching people just to get into their music software, just start making music. It's the same thing with reading. Just get into the book and start reading it. It's a dead simple habit. That's why I call it a 5-second habit. It probably takes you 1 second. You know, maybe you have to walk over to your book, pick it up, sit down on the couch and open it. Takes a few seconds, right? The thing is, that habit has power. Right? If you open your book, you're more likely to see where you were at last time, or scan the table of contents if it's a new book, or scan the whole book if you are sort of trying to get an idea as to whether you even want to read the book. Either way, you're going to start reading, right? You can't read if the book is closed on your shelf, on your table, somewhere in your house. You have to be opening books. And I can almost guarantee that no one who opens a book shuts it back straight away again. They at least do some level of reading. So if you want to read more, start opening your book more. it doesn't matter whether it's 30 seconds you read for, 3 minutes, 3 hours, right? The fact is you're reading something. Now, it's all well and good to talk about this as a theoretical concept. I'm aware of that. Yes, Aiden, I know I need to open my book more. You probably didn't need to tell me that. Well, here's a foolproof method for actually doing this, right? Take the book with you / have the book around you, right? If you're working full time or you're out a lot and you don't bring a book with you, you're not going to open it. Right? Opening the book presupposes that you have the book around you. Again, we're talking like this is super simple stuff. This is not probably groundbreaking conceptually to you. But the more the book is around, the more you're going to open it up. So this is why I say to people, take your book everywhere with you. If you're not at home a lot, take it places with you. If you are at home a lot, have it in places where it's visually easily viewable. Right? Don't have it tucked away in some pile of papers or in some kitchen drawer or in your bedside table or wherever it is. Have your book in a place that's going to trigger, I need to read this book, I need to read this book. And then having it around you more is going to help you read it more because you're going to feel like you want to open it up more. Right? I've got a book right here. I've opened it. Oh, cool, I can read section 1 on works dealing with the Calvinistic system in general or with the broader area of God's sovereignty. This is a great book, by the way, The 5 Points of Calvinism by David Steele and Curtis Thomas. Highly recommend it if you're looking for a good introduction to Calvinism, but that aside, that was so easy for me to do. Again, I'm not trying to make it groundbreaking for you here. Now, I want to add a little bonus tip in here. You've got your book around you. You know you need to open it up. A bonus point is reducing the activities that are going to take you away from that. What I call this, generally speaking, is turning your smartphone into a dumb phone. You'll see there it's in grayscale, which is actually something I think I'll make a video on at some point, how to turn your smartphone into a dumb phone for reading more books. I think that'll be quite a helpful video. But anyway, when you start reading more, at first your temptation is, you're opening up the book more. That's great. You've got the book around you. You're not spending as much time on your phone or you're not doing other activities. They're all really good things. But what happens at this point is you start to add arbitrary amounts of reading time onto the habit when you haven't really built a solid foundation yet. Now, like I said before earlier in the video, if you start opening up the book more regularly, I can almost guarantee any Christian man, even if you're a novice reader and you don't like reading, you're not used to reading, should I say. Hopefully you at least enjoy reading somewhat. I digress. Anyone who opens up the book will read for at least a few minutes, 5 minutes, even the most novice reader. I've never really seen that many people start trying to read and then give up after 30 seconds, unless, of course, there's a more core literary problem there, which is valid and sometimes needs to be addressed. But generally, assuming you can read, reading for 5 minutes is something anyone can say yes to. The most experienced, the most novice, right? And I think often this is all wrapped up in this mindset shift that I think needs to happen in Christians when they approach reading, is to treat books like tools. The point of reading a book is to grow in wisdom to the glory of God, not just in a way to accumulate a bunch of head knowledge, but to live it out. And in that sense, books become tools. Think of the Bible, the ultimate book, right? It is fundamentally not just a list of doctrine, although it definitely contains that. It's something to be lived out, right? And, you don't feel like you necessarily have to read the Bible from start to finish every time you pick it up. Sometimes you're going to Matthew to read some things about Jesus. Sometimes you're going to Paul's letters to read out some stuff about Paul's view on justification. Sometimes you're going to the Old Testament to view some history in, around the time of the Davidic kingdom, something like that, right? You don't have to always view it like I'm going to perfectly read this entire volume, right? But we do often treat other books like that. Whereas, I could take this book, 5 Points of Calvinism, and I could just view the chapter on limited atonement because I really wanted to get some of the Bible verses and proof texts for arguing and advocating for that position. We treat books perfectionistically. I am guilty of this. I used to be in this trap of thinking every book I start I have to finish. That is not the case. In fact, I think there's a casualness, an appropriate level of casualness that you can have about your reading that I think more Christians can do. Think about your phone, right? You don't necessarily hop on there to complete, a project in full. Sometimes you're hopping on there just to Google something really quick, or sometimes you're hopping on there just to catch up with your social media feed, or something like that, right? Well, it can be the same thing with books. There are times where more in-depth start to finish reading is appropriate. But there are other times where, you just want to go check this book out for a little bit, maybe skim it, maybe read a specific section, and then put it back on the shelf. The books that you have should be tools that you can use in the Christian life. You don't have to be a full-blown theologian or pastor to do it either. If you're trying to learn some evangelism techniques from a book, you might just skim part of that book. You don't have to read the full thing, etc., etc. Now, of course, there's a level of over-casualness that people can have with reading. You should finish books at least sometimes. It shouldn't just be starting and abandoning. I get that. But when you're starting to build this habit, don't be perfectionistic. Just read whatever you feel like. Just start reading it and see where it takes you. Right? So, to summarize, get your book. 5 seconds, open it up to where you had your bookmark, to the beginning of the book if it's a new book, to the table of contents if you're just trying to get an idea for the book, and you will read more. And that's how people like Jacob are able to read 5 times more than people like Daniel, is they are opening their book more. Now, if you need some accountability with your reading goals, you need to actually commit to the goals you set with reading. You feel like you constantly want to be reading more like Daniel, but you just can't. Maybe you've tried opening your books and you still feel like you need a level of accountability. I would encourage you to sign up for Reformation Book Club. You can click below and start your free 7-day trial, and then it's just $9 a month. Prices are going up soon, so I do encourage you to join while the prices are that low. There's a wonderful community of men that are growing every day, more people joining, and we're just all spurring one another on with the different books we're reading. Sometimes we read books together. There's various courses, reference material to help you build better habits. So I encourage you to check that out down below in the description. And again, if you want that list of books that is just going to be helpful, grab the free Ultimate Reformed book list down below. There's over 400 books in 20 plus different categories. Really hope that blesses you. I hope this simple yet sharp, pointy video has helped you think about the way you read books, and I hope and pray that it helps you read more books in the Christian life. Until next time, God bless.